The next to the last Tycoon. Hallie's laptop broke down at a bad time. She sat in a North Hollywood apartment about to type. An antique Smith Corona the manager dragged up from the basement. Do I even know how to do this? She asked herself. But she had a deadline, and her laptop was checked in for repair at Mr. Computer over on Fairfax, so she didn't have much choice. She snatched a handful of paper out of her printer and opened the typewriter case. There was already a single sheet rolled up in the platen. She pulled the sheet out. It was so yellow and brittle it tore in her hand. She read. Starr knew what to do next. He dialed the studio with trembling fingers. Someone, a long time ago, had been working on a story about a character named Starr and never finished. Starr? It sounded like a soap opera name. She balled the torn sheet and pitched it in the wastebasket. She didn't have time to worry about Starr. She had her own story to write. She had made the mistake of selling this book before she had actually finished it, so in 2 weeks she needed to have the first draft for her next Audrey McLean mystery to her editor at Prime Publishing, or forget ever publishing with Prime again. She lit a value-priced cigarette, her first of her daily ration of 2, and rolled in a sheet of Target multi-purpose bond. She knew where the story was going. Audrey McLean would get in trouble like she always did, and figure some damn clever way to get out of it and take the bad guys down at the same time. Except she didn't know where it was going after all. She moved her fingers over the ancient keys, a QWERTY layout, just like on her Toshiba, and nothing happened. Her mind was blank. Maybe it was the unfamiliarity of the keys, each one big, the size of a shiny candy, each one on a metal lever that disappeared into the guts of the typewriter. She tried typing a practice line. The quick brown fox jumped over the lazy old dog. Wham, wham went the keys, and ding went the machine when she reached the end of the line. Wow, her fingers ached. The writer boys in the old days must have had powerful hands to bang out a whole novel on one of these. But that was what she needed to do. She quick brown foxed and dinged her way down half a page and rolled in a new sheet. It was time to work on her novel for real. Her mind remained blank, so she tried what she usually did, let her characters write the book for her. No kidding. She'd seen a picture of Charles Dickens at his writing desk. He was surrounded by little tiny characters like Oliver Twist and David Copperfield and Tiny Tim on his crutch. They were all a few inches tall and stood on the desk, on the floor, even whispering in his ear, telling him his story while he sat, a quill pen in hand, writing it all down. Well, at least she had a typewriter instead of part of a dead goose and bottle of ink. Her own characters would appear to her full-sized, although blurry and indistinct, with the exception of Audrey McLean herself, who had helped her write several novels now. Where was Audrey? A plucky 27-year-old detective with her mop of auburn curls and crooked but attractive smile. She usually sat on the nearest chair, ready to talk her wise-ass girl detective talk, but today was nowhere to be seen. Hallie began to write anyway. A scene where Audrey walks into a San Pedro bar looking for information on a charter fishing boat captain. As she typed, she saw the captain appear on the dusty old 1920s couch. The couch came with its apartment she'd only rented last month. Then Sissy the barmaid showed up and a couple of the regulars, but they had little to say. Hallie typed away uncertainly, still not sure where the story was going next. She didn't recognize a character who sat in a wing-back chair, a broken spring showing right through his form. He didn't say much at first, while Chrissy talked a mile a minute, but not all of it useful to the story. He put a leg casually over the arm of the chair, college boy style, even though he was obviously older than that. He watched Hallie with fascination as she rolled new sheets of multi-purpose into the Smith Corona, nodding as she finished each page. At one page, he looked none too pleased and shook his head. She lit the second of her ration of value price and saw that he reached for the lighter as though to light it for her, but his fingers passed right through it. "Why don't you have a society girl walk into this dive?" he said at last. "Her boyfriend is late meeting her, so she talks to the fishing captain instead." The voice was crisp, Midwestern, with an overlay of ivy leaf. Hallie stopped typing and looked at the character. "A society girl? Sure, she's slumming, see?" He poked at the cigarette package as though trying to move it. Hallie had never seen this character before, but here he was giving her suggestions. He grinned at her, emanating charm and confidence. His crinkly brown hair was parted in the middle. He had a long face and an athletic build in a tightly fitted old-fashioned suit. His eyes were gray, too, and at one moment seemed narrow and penetrating, and the next distant, almost visionary. "I don't know," Hallie said. "A society girl?" "Sure, the boyfriend is Bob, a big man on campus, but he's gotten in some trouble." "Okay, could be interesting." "Well, see," he leaned back in his chair, throwing his arm over it casually and crossed his legs. His trousers were the pleated kind with a pale pinstripe, and she saw a tailor's patch on one of the cuffs. "Go ahead." "Carol, the society girl, flirts with this boat captain until Bob arrives, and there's a fight." "Okay, what the hell," said Hallie. "Nothing much is happening here anyway." She rolled in a new page and started writing Carol and Bob into her story. After all, this man was just an extension of her own subconscious mind. It steered her right before. Audrey McLean had led her stories down many dark alleys and into posh penthouses. But unlike Audrey, he started asking her questions. What-if questions for her story. And he suggested some new plot lines beyond the Carol and Bob he'd already started her on. He's pretty good, she thought. Her own subconscious in the guise of a slender-faced, athletic man in his late 30s, with his